the original location of Philae temples was not here on Angelica Island. It was originally on Bigay Island behind me. But after building the high dam, the water level increased behind it, and this temple was submerged under the water almost till the half of it. So the UNESCO came and led a rescue mission to rescue the temple by dismantling all its blocks and rocks and moving it all the way till here. This operation took almost 10 years. For over 50 years, the island of Philae and its monuments lay half submerged in water. Situated between both Aswan Old Dam and the High Dam, the water level was constantly high until the UNESCO led a great rescue operation for the Nubian monuments in the 60s. The temples of Philae were totally dismantled and rebuilt on the similar nearby island of Angelica, which rises 6 meters higher than the original island of Bigay. Metal pylons and few blocks can still be seen rising from the water to the south of Angelica. The earliest of the surviving monuments of Philae is a kiosk of Nectanebo I of the 30th dynasty. Most of the other structures are Ptolemaic and Roman, and were reused by the early Christians when the temple was finally closed by the Emperor Justinian in 550 AD. The temple was dedicated to Isis and was a center of the cult of that great goddess and her other image Hathor during the Roman period. It was the last temple in use in Egypt. The first cataract is considered a geographical separator between Egypt and Nubia, or Ethiopia, as the Greeks called it, starting from the 3rd century BC. This area controlled the southern gate of the Egyptian borders and played an important and distinctive role throughout thousands of years. Elephantine was one of the islands of the first cataract, and ever since the Old Kingdom considered a fortress on the borders, protecting the southern entrances and directing campaigns of discipline to the territories there, besides forming a market of trade with Nubia. This is confirmed by the name of the town facing east of the island, for it was called Suno, which means the market, which the Arabs later called Aswan. During the Greek period, the Ptolemaic kings controlled Lower Nubia, but their actual authority didn't practically exceed more than 110 kilometers south of Aswan. This region was given the name Dodeca-Shoinos, as it included important cities like Dabut, Kalabsha, Garfosen, Kurti, and El Mahraka. The Egyptian influence predominated the Nubian culture, but in the second half of the 3rd century BC, the situation changed when the Marwayan king Arkamani I ruled. He was known to the Greeks as Ergamenes and was a young man who got educated in the royal Ptolemaic palace by the most famous Greek philosophers and was highly affected by the Greek culture. This was clearly seen in the Marwayan culture, but the Egyptian culture dominated overall. This is shown in all the remaining monuments of the Marwayan civilization in Egypt. In general, the relations between the Ptolemaic country and the Marwian kingdom was amicable. This was translated into building common temples, the most important of which is Philae Temple, the most famous island of the First Cataract. One of the most important islands of the First Cataract, and its highly famous ones, is the island of Elephantine. It was considered a center for the first nome since the beginning of dynasties and until the 3rd century BC, when it was replaced as a political and administrative center for the southern region by Komombo city, which was known then as Nubat for its gold. Elephantine lies directly ahead of Aswan city and stretches for 1.5 miles. Its Greek name translates its ancient Egyptian one, which was Yebo, and means the elephant, which was its slogan too. The elephants grazed in the nearby area and were frequently hunted too. So ivory trade prospered, and it's possibly that a hunter tribe settled here and started commerce with the local Nubians. For that strategic purpose, a fortress was constructed on the island right ahead of the plain land, which extends and is more suitable for building. They called the new city Suwan, which means the market. The fortress served as a military base, defending both the trade and the dangers that might crawl from the southern borders and endanger the whole country. By the rise of the great kings of the Old Kingdom, who are called the Pyramids builders, Aswan entered a new era of prosperity. A huge amount of granite stones were brought from here to build Cheops and Khafre's pyramids. As for Mycerinus, he went too far in using the quarries here to the extent of lining the whole 3rd pyramid of Giza with granite. In addition, Nubians enjoyed the advantage of being fierce fighters and were used extensively in the Egyptian army, and most probably were trained for fighting in Elephantine. The noblemen tombs of Aswan are living proofs of these facts, which led to putting Elephantine on the military and the trade maps of ancient Egypt. That importance was fortified by the monuments which were built over the island throughout the entire history of Egypt. At the southeast edge of Elephantine Island lies the ruins of a fortress belonging to the Old Kingdom, and to the west of the pier, the remainings of a temple can be seen attached to the river wall. This temple was built by the Roman Emperor Trajan by using the blocks of the ruined buildings, for we see cartouches bearing the names of King Thutmose III and Thutmose IV and Ramesses III on the stones and the columns. The temple is attached to the Nilometer, where the old fortress's ruins are. The Nilometer is reached by going down the steps that descend from the temple above. They were connected to the Nilometer in the old times, and both these steps and the tunnel that runs all the way to the river were topped with a granite ceiling. As for the rest of the building, sandstone was used in its construction. The roof has gone completely, and all the stairs are exposed. The priests of the temple used to put marks at the levels of the annual inundation on the walls beside the steps. By time, this place became the official measuring place according to which the Egyptian taxation system was formed. During the Greek period, the marks were made in Greek and Demotic handwriting, but when the Nilometer was rediscovered in 1822, Arabic alphabets were used. It was 1870 when Mahmud Bey reused this ancient Nilometer. He was a prominent Egyptian astronomer, and he placed local alabaster palettes over the interior walls of the Nilometer where the levels were inscribed. According to the ancient beliefs about the sources of the Nile, they lie between the mountains of Aswan and the island of Elephantine. One mountain is called Krufi and the other is Mufi. That's where the Nile god Habi stays with two jars in his hands. One jar pours water towards the north and the other towards the south. His cave is protected by the cobra and exists underneath the rocks of the first cataract. This image is relieved on the walls of Hadrian Gate in Philae Temple, existing on another famous island among the islands of the Cataracts of Egypt. Small rock-cut temple, originally situated 55 kilometers south of Aswan at Beit El Wali, can be seen at the northwest of the island of New Kalabsha. It's the oldest temple of Ramesses II in Nubia, which means that it was constructed before the great temples of Abu Simbel. Beit El Wali temple is dedicated to Amun, the sun god, and god Khnum, the ram-headed god, and his wife Anokit. The name of the temple is an Arabic name that means the house of the ruler, as it was used as a church after Christianity entered Egypt. The construction is simple, as it's composed of a small court, a vestibule, and a sanctuary. But the scenes here are very interesting. On the side walls of the court are scenes of victory in battles, showing Ramesses and his sons against Upper Nubian tribesmen, who are called the Kushites. The Kushites lived around the Third Cataract and were separated from Egypt before the time of Thutmose III, who added the lands all the way to the Fourth Cataract to the Egyptian kingdom. Here, the governor of Nubia is rewarded with gold chains, and other scenes depict the king receiving tributes of animals and ivory, which trade was prosperous in this part of the region, being close to the jungle. Three doors lead into the rock-cut transverse chamber, which has two proto-Doric columns with inscriptions on all four sides. Many beautifully preserved painted reliefs show the king in front of the gods or in relationship with them. The sanctuary has the statues of god Khnum and his two wives Satet and Anokit. Just as the nearby temples of Kalabsha and Kirtasi, the temple of Beit El Wali was rescued from the rising water of Lake Nasser behind the high dam, and was reconstructed in its present site to continue radiating the ancient Egyptian civilization to the whole world. Kalabsha is another temple in Aswan that was rescued and relocated. It enjoys a fantastic view over the Nile behind the high dam. It's not situated on an island, but it can be only reached by a boat. The temple was built during the Roman period of Caesar Augustus, but over an earlier ruins of an ancient Egyptian one. It's composed of a pylon and an open court, followed by an hypostyle hall, and ends with a sanctuary that consists of 3 chambers. Important graffiti are inscribed on several parts of the walls. The temple is specialized with a god to whom it was dedicated. It's god Mendolis, whose origin may be somewhere in Africa, but here he is considered a Nubian god. Touring around the temples of Aswan is a great experience of both entertainment and knowledge. It's a journey in the past that would take you to places far beyond your imagination.